Let's save this Mazda 2 from scrap. So this isn't my car, but it could very easily have ended up in the scrapyard. Let me explain. Went for MOT today, and it didn't get too bad of a fail sheet, but I'll show you what's wrong with it. This is what would probably have been with most cars of this age and value, its death certificate. So as you can see, there's a handful of advisories on there, and then there's some major fails and a dangerous. Dangerous is a missing exhaust heat shield. Has just had an exhaust professionally fitted. It's also got some corrosion, and then the rest is all to do with headlight aim. So if we look in the boot, under the carpet here, there is a little tiny hole here. So that's going to need plated. And if we lift the bonnet, on the back of the headlight, there is a little motor that adjusts the height of the headlight, and that's not working. And then the beam pattern is wrong on this headlight, which I suppose could be something as simple as the bulb might be in the wrong way around. And it's easier to understand why cars of this age end up in the scrapyard, because Mazda want 300 quid per headlight unit, and they also want 100 quid for the exhaust heat shield, and then a further 30 quid for the nuts that secure the exhaust heat shield to the car. But I don't think that this car deserves to end up in the scrapyard, so I'm going to spend the next day or two, try my very best to keep it out of there without having to spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds on it. It couldn't be hotter. Anyway, first repair on this Mazda, the headlight aim. So, inside the engine bay, on the back of the headlight, you usually have this little motor here. Now, I've unplugged it from the headlight, but you can see it's got this little ball piece on the end. And that attaches to the reflector in the headlight through a little hole down here. So if I give that a wiggle, you'll see the reflector itself moves. Now that little ball in the end of there is supposed to be attached to the back reflector, but when you look at the one on the other side of the car, you see how much further that sticks out on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'll try and strip that motor down and see if there's some adjustment in it, and if there is, happy days, we've got the headlight adjustment sorted. Yeah, this looks like it's going to be a dead simple one. So this is the ball that goes into the back of the headlight, and then this is an adjuster where you can adjust the amount of travel on that, and spinning that has started to have this come out. So if I spin this some more, set it to the same setting as that one, and then put it back together. Next issue is even easier to. The headlight on this side has the beam pattern is obviously incorrect. Now you can see the pins there, that's the main beam bulb. Now if we look at the one on the other side, you'll notice it's rotated about 90 degrees. So that bulb on the other side is installed, spun out of position. So we'll take it out, spin it around, put it back in, sorted. So now reassembled, back together, and the lens is moving up and down as it should, and the beam pattern's correct. One last thing I want to do with the headlights, don't like the look of this lens, so I'm going to try and do something about the cloudiness. So I'm going to give them a bit of a polish with some of this. It's a single stage headlight restorer. There's various ones on the market. This works okay. It was cheap when I went into the motor parts store, so we'll throw this on. There we go, that looks a little better. You can see me face in it, look. You can see me making this TikTok, there's my phone. So that's the headlight fixed. All aspects of the headlight, alignment, projection image, everything that it failed on. And so far, I haven't spent anything at all. No cost fix. Well, in the part 2 of getting this Mazda through its MOT. Nice little Triumph triple here. It's not ours. Anyway, inside the boot, or visible inside the boot, it's actually through from underneath, there are a couple of patches of corrosion. So there's a small patch here, and then there's this larger patch in here. Now if I weld this here with all this carpet and this trim in, with the amount of heat that welding generates, everything will catch fire. So the first thing I do is we strip this trim out, strip the carpets out, take the parcel shelf out the way, get the seats full, create space that's just metal around here, and then I'm gonna have space to get in and get these 2 spots of corrosion repaired. There's that side stripped. We can see better the corrosion in this corner. Now I appreciate that you might say there's a lot of stuff involved in taking all these plastics off, and that, you know, maybe it's been a bit excessive with the amount you've removed. The point is, look at the back side of this. So this is the trim. The back side of it's lined with this fluffy padding stuff, soundproofing. If that catches fire, that's just going to burn like anything. So for the couple of minutes it takes, it's absolutely worth stripping all the plastic away. We're also going to have to clean some of this stuff away. This is the original seam sealer from when the car was built, but this stuff, when it gets hot, is also gets very melty slash on fiery. I think we'll also pull the spare wheel out. I think because the proximity this tyre to the repair, we might also pull this wheel off, although actually it's actually under there, so there, we'll strip it and see how we get on. There's a spare wheel out. Spare wheel hub doesn't look too bad actually. There's a few bits of surface corrosion on it, but one of the other things that we're going to have to do is get all of this completely clean back to bare metal. The type of welding I do is electrical welding, MIG welding, and it needs a clean metal contact. With any contamination, paint, rust, anything like that, it will just blow holes in the weld. So we do that now. So as is typical for corrosion, this one here is cleaned up really quite nicely, and the corrosion is kind of limited to this area. This one, the hole that was here, obviously expanded all the way along here. It's very common that when you start taking paint off, that you find that actually the metal's rotten underneath. So what I may do is actually make a piece that follows the line of the original panel there. Actually do this whole section, but I'll take this off first. We'll see how this looks, and we go from there. One vital task to do before we do anything to think about straightening up an arc door is we need to disconnect the battery. Modern cars have all kinds of electronic CCUs, things like that. Welding sends huge voltage spikes through the body of the car, and if you don't disconnect the battery, you can fry ECUs. So it's cleaned up. I think I'm going to have to pull this stuff off, probably with a bit of heat, and then join it up to this wheel arch tub here. Rest of it we'll just weld round, but to get my eye in, I'm going to start with this little square here. So here we've got a little piece of cardboard, a little bit of cornflakes box that we've cut to the shape of the hole, and what I'm going to do is transfer that to the metal, use my serious scissors to chop it out of the metal. Wouldn't want fingers in there. Next step, we need to get this as clean as the metal that we're going to weld to, because this has a kind of a protective coating on it, like a shipping coating. So we'll get that cleaned down, we'll get it welded in. So at the start, on a fairly low power, just tap the corners of the plate in. MOT requirement says you need a continuous weld all around the patch, so that's what we'll do. Welding gear wise, this is the welding torch. Simple trigger there. Pull the trigger, wire feeds out of it, and then there's an earth clamp up here. So the way it works is it passes electricity through the welding wire, and it goes through the machine and through the earth clamp, and then that's what actually makes the weld. With that welded up and ground back, it's fair to say that patch was probably smaller than it needed to be, and the metal in this car is quite rusty because there was a lot of holes blown. I've had to give it a couple of passes, grind it right back, but that'll do for MOT purposes. So then we've just got the big one in the corner to go. The other thing, we can't leave it like this. We're going to have to put some paint in, otherwise it'll just rust straight out again. Okay, a bit of paint over that, a bit of primer so far. This one, I've got the cardboard. What I want to do is put a edge on here, tack it along here, rather than try and weld up to this corner. The rest of it we'll just play it along. Happy days. That's it, patches are all in. Get a bit of primer on that, and then get underneath, and we'll apply some of this underneath it to keep the rust from coming back. So we've got some paint, some primer, paint, what have you, on these repairs. I'm going to leave that to dry overnight. We're starting to lose the light because it's getting quite late now, so we'll get it put back together. So that was part 2 on fixing the Mazda, and so far our spend is still nothing at all, 0. The only thing we've got left to do now is sort out the exhaust heat shield. I've got a plan for that, but I think that's a tomorrow job. And today we've got the car up on the ramps because what we need to do is fabricate a heat shield to go between the fuel tank and the exhaust system. We might be doing this in the rain. I can hear thunder in the distance. So this stuff is like a corrugated lightweight aluminium sheet, and this is off the middle of the focus, but we can cut it and shape it to fit where we want it to go. This was kind of donated by another TikToker. I'll tag him because he does some really cool videos about I'm not sure what you call it, pyro art. Maybe he's burning images into wood. I've got to lie on the floor for this bit. I don't really like lying on the floor, so I've got one of these, which is it's like a soft bed thing with these wheels on the back, because I suppose when you're younger it's alright lying on tarmac and dirt, but it gets a bit tiresome, especially when you're in and out from under the car and up and down. So these things are lifesavers. So we're under the car now. Here's the new exhaust centre section, and there's a fuel tank, and there is supposed to be between these two things a heat shield that wraps around here and would attach to this tank strap here. So the proper one from Mazda is about £105 plus the 5 bolts you need to secure it to the car, £35. So what we're going to do is try and fabricate one from what we've got and attach it, and then yeah, save that money. Yeah, it's a bit wet. Look at that. So just before the heavens opened, I fitted this in the car, shaped it to the shape I want, and then you'll notice I've done there's a Sharpie line around. So what we're going to do is we'll cut it along the Sharpie line, and then what we'll do, we'll fold it back on itself at that point so that it creates a nice edge as opposed to a ragged edge, and that's the right shape to fit where we want it fit. Then we'll have to chuck it under the tank straps, put a couple of bolts in it, various places under the car, and then we'll be good to go. We've come in the relative safety of the kitchen. You can hear the rain outside. Anyway, I'll cut this section away. Next thing to do is we're going to fold a bit of a lip around the edge of this, make it neat. We don't want any sharp bits like that there. So I've created this. So what I've done is fold the edge over so it doesn't have a sharp edge there. It's not pretty. It doesn't really need to be pretty. It just needs to be the right shape, stay in position. So I'm going to have to get out and try this on the car, but I can still hear rain out there, so I'm going to give a minute. So the rain stopped and we now have the heat shield fitted, although it's not actually attached anywhere. So the next thing to do is we'll make some holes in it and we will attach it to the car. So it's on, but I wasn't quite happy, so I've made an extra piece. Didn't extend far enough round, so I'm going to put this bit on and then we'll be sorted. So there we go. It ain't pretty, but it's attached. We've got the heat shield around the fuel tank for the exhaust, and that should be everything that's required to put this car back on the road. Put all the trim back together. Heavens have opened. Stuck in the car, but it's ready to be retested and to do another year on the road.